you are.
Welcome to another edition of Vikings Vintage, where we talk Viking history. We fought with the NBA draft on tonight. By the way, the T-Wolves made a trade. They got Dillingham from Kentucky. They traded with the Spurs. Uh, nice little point guard. We thought we'd talk about first-round picks that either held out or didn't sign at all and went to a different team.
Vikings, let's win this game. Skull Vikings on a relay. Go get that first down, then get a touchdown. Rock 'em, sock 'em, fight, 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 fight. Go Vikings, run out the score. You'll hear us yell for more. V-I-K-I-N-G-S. Skull Vikings, let's go.
So, we all know probably the most popular one is probably Bryant McKinney.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let's talk about Brian McKinney. Only player I've ever known to be kicked off a Pro Bowl team. And when the Vikings drafted him, what year was that? 02, I believe.
I think it might have been 02.
I think he was 02. And there was a bunch of commotion in the drafting of him because Minnesota didn't get their pick in time, up to the podium in time. So there was confusion there. Well, they did get McKinney, and McKinney held out all through preseason, all through training camp. And he didn't play until the 8th game of the regular season. And I actually think he started the 8th game of the regular season. Hey, Mom. I'm in the Twin Cities, so we're not close to the flood area, but St. Paul is the Mississippi River's rising, so there's some roads near the Mississippi that are flooded. But for the most part, I'm on dry land.
It felt like 111 here today.
We felt like it was cool today. Yesterday was humid here. Today it was comfortable. It was about 72, 73 and comfortable.
So did we have any players who we drafted in the first round who decided to play for the USFL? Or
play in the other leagues that were out at the time?
Well, like tonight's topic is first round picks who held out or signed someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Vikings really haven't had a history of first round draft picks.
No, which give them credit. Even when they had Mike Lynn, the first rounders still managed to sign, except for Keith Millard. But there was a bidding war between the Vikings and the Jacksonville Bulls for Keith's services, and Keith signed with Jacksonville. He played with them for 2 years. There were like middle round draft choices that signed with the USFL. Mark Rush signed with the USFL. He was a running back, fullback from Miami. I believe he was a teammate of Jim Kelly's. He signed in the USFL. But then back in the 60s, Jim Dunaway and Bobby Bell, the Vikings' top 2 draft picks in the 63 draft, they both signed with the AFL. So they lost those two. And Bobby Bell was a big loss, especially because he was a Minnesota kid. And so we've had those. Millard signed with the USFL. Usually with the players that hold out, they do sign, but it's either after training camp or in the middle of training camp where they don't have to do too much training camp, depending on how long it is. Doug Martin, defensive end Doug Martin, he held out in 1980, so he missed all of preseason. He didn't sign until the week of the regular season opener. And he suited up against Philadelphia in week 2. He held out. Darren Nelson held out, but only for like 3 games. Usually with Mike Lynn, when he was a GM, there was somebody holding out. There was always, because Mike Lynn didn't want to pay anybody. When the USFL folded, and then we signed Dolman. I think Dolman missed the first 2 days of camp in '85. We signed Dolman. The next year we drafted Gerald Robinson. He signed right away. DJ Dozier signed right away, and Randall McDaniel signed right away.
Well, first of all, if you watched our live stream last week, you can see that my typing is not the best at that finger. A lot of stuff, so I forgot. I didn't forget the G; it just didn't go in. So when you have big fat meat hook hands, or fat sausage fingers and hands, it's hard to type sometimes.
Your alignment, Catch. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Your alignment.
Same thing for me. I'm more gray every day I wake up.
Welcome to my world.
I wasn't gray before I got married, though. Nah. So, yeah. So under Darren Nelson, like you said, was the other one. McKinney probably held out the longest. I don't think any guys did it in the Bud Grant era.
Well, Darren was a Bud Grant era, but nobody held out really because Doug Martin was the longest. But usually everybody signed, but everything changed when Mike Lynn came in, and Mike Lynn got cheap. So it wasn't the rookies you had to worry about holding out. It was usually the veterans that were going to hold out. But Mike Lynn was notoriously cheap. Notoriously.
I guess another reason why we're talking about this is because JJ hasn't signed his contract yet. The rookies holding out really don't matter anymore because their salary is set. It's more about the language of the contract that it's more the language of the contract that people hold out for, like guaranteed and how it's structured and stuff like this.
Right.
Backloaded. That's usually what they hang out. I think I don't think anything's going to happen with JJ. I think he's going to sign before training camp, like a lot of the Vikings rookies do.
He'll sign. He's here. I mean,
yeah,
he's here in town working with the team, going over the playbook, which I guess is the hardest in the NFL to get used to.
Yeah.
That's for another show. Is Dallas Turner even signed? Dallas Turner's not signed either, is he?
No, none of them are.
Okay. So they'll probably let's see. The first is next Monday. They'll start within the next.
Well, today is the 26th.
So the first is next Monday, yeah. So they'll pick up they'll probably start picking up in signing draft picks probably around.
Yeah, because Friday's the 28th, so Monday is the 1st. Yeah.
Yep.
So the 4th is what, Thursday?
Yeah, next week. They'll start signing people next week. Like you said, it's just language in the contract for JJ.
Yeah.
Probably the same with Dallas Turner. So it's for those that are stressing, don't stress. They'll be signed. Nothing to worry about. I don't know. Darnold has a good season. He'll get paid next year. Somebody will overpay.
It won't be the Vikings
this year. It won't be the Vikings, but it'll be a team that's quarterback starved. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I mean, the Vikings have been a very lucky team as far as holdouts go. They don't usually have a lot of them. It's usually not the rookies. It's usually the veterans that hold out. The longest was McKinney, and that was well into the regular season, and that was under Mike Tice, and that was during the Red McCombs era. Derek Alexander was a holdout. Derek Alexander, we picked him ahead of Warren Sapp in '95. The guy never amounted to anything. He had bad knees coming into the league. He had played at Florida State. I don't see how you pass up Warren Sapp for Derek Alexander, but somehow Danny Green did it. and the excuses were there.
Which is weird because he took a chance on Moss. And Moss, I guess you could say Moss's issues were different than Sapp's.
Right.
So
Sapp's whole thing was it was just a weed thing.
Exactly.
Where Billick said they didn't get the report in time about him and the weed. But I think back to Denny and his coaching and the type of coach he was. Denny was an offensive coach. He wasn't a defensive coach. He was strictly an offensive coach.
Well, you can't hate all Florida State picks because Moss was a Florida State Seminole for a little bit.
Yeah, for a little bit.
But yeah, we have not had good luck. The two schools, the Vikings, have not had good success with drafting players from Clemson and Florida State. I mean, yeah, you get your Ed McDaniels, but most of the time you get your boost.
Where did Ed go?
Ed McDaniel?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a Clemson player.
He's Clemson, okay.
Yeah.
Terry Allen's Clemson.
So, but then you get your recently they haven't had good success with Clemson players.
No, who was the last one we had that didn't pan out? Who was it?
Booth Jr.
Oh.
And before him, it was that corner who played safety too. He was with Rhodes and Waynes. Oh my gosh.
Oh, you're talking about not Sendejo.
He played safety and corner, but oh my gosh.
Mackenzie Alexander.
Yeah, Mackenzie Alexander. Second round pick.
Yeah, Mackenzie, which Zimmer hyped the hell out of him and he looked like he was going to be pretty good, and then he just fell off.
Yeah. Brad Johnson's probably the best Florida State player.
Yeah, and he was a backup. He didn't
have any offensive linemen from there.
We did have Amp Lee for a minute.
Right. No wide receivers really panned out. Quarterbacks.
Where did Hassan Jones go? Hassan Jones was Florida, right?
I am not sure. Let me double check. He went to Clearwater High School.
Okay.
Florida State.
Hassan Jones is Florida State?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
So we haven't had too many holdouts. We haven't had too many.
No. You're not going to – the last holdout we had that was of any substance was McKinney.
Well, Rhodes didn't really hold out, right?
Rhodes didn't really hold out. He did sign. He missed a couple, 2-3 days maybe, because they already had the rookie pay scale. So it really doesn't make sense for a rookie to hold out. It doesn't.
Yeah.
You're already in that pay scale of what you're going to get paid. So, like you said, it's the language. Well, nowadays it's the language. Back then, I think they just divvied up the money the best they could, and the players. That's why the players that were good couldn't wait to hit free agency. They'd get paid. They would get paid.
Is he even in the league?
Who's that, McKenzie?
Yeah.
I think
Xavier.
Xavier's out. Xavier's not in the league. Unless he signed with Zimmer in Dallas, I don't think he's in the league.
Because he played for the Colts last year, right?
Last year, the year before. Yep.
It's funny how they all complained about Zimmer when he was here. Zimmer this, Zimmer that. But now that he's in Dallas, like Eric Kendricks, he was one of the main vocal guys while he was gone. Now look at him in Dallas playing for him.
Eric Kendricks is the biggest hypocrite. he couldn't wait to bash on Zimmer when he was
Yeah.
here. And now that he's
Out of a job and needs work.
basically needed a job, Zimmer hired him. But yeah, that's just you know, a lot of these guys talk out of both sides of their mouths. You know. And there was a whole thing going on with the Viking organization too. Everything was bad because of Zimmer and Spielman. They had to put that narrative out there to get people on board with what was going on with the new regime. And it luckily KLC and Kwesi won 13 games their first year. That's a good thing and a bad thing. So now this is on KLC and Kwesi. Whatever happens, there's no excuses, and you can't offer any excuses for this regime. You can't blame Zimmer anymore. You can't. And like I've said, we'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, people outside the organization love O'Connell.
He's got a lot of positive press. I mean, they say he's one of the top 10 best football minds as a head coach, offensive coaches. I'd like to see it. I really would.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're seeing. Maybe it's who he's connected to that they're seeing. But those same people that are hyping up to be this great offensive guru, this offensive genius, don't give the Vikings much of a chance this year because they don't have Kirk Cousins. These are the same ones that say the Vikings have a great offensive coordinator and a great offensive mind in Kevin O'Connell, but they're going to suck this year because they don't have Kirk Cousins at quarterback. So, I mean, which is it here, media?
Yeah.
Was it O'Connell? Was it Kirk? You know, what's the flip flop? There was an interesting thing I saw on Twitter today. It was from Rick Spielman. Rick Spielman says he's worried about Garrett Bradbury at center this year for the team because when Garrett plays no athletic nose tackles, he gets blown up. And he brought up Dexter Lawrence with the Giants.
Yeah, but wouldn't he know that himself? He's the one who drafted him.
And Kenny Clark of the Packers. I'm just kind of like, oh, wait a minute, didn't you draft Bradbury?
Yeah.
I'm like, you drafted him. So when did you realize that he wasn't that good? You know?
Probably when he drafted him.
Probably. We'll find out in training camp, but team's got a lot of questions. Is JJ going to hold out? No. Dallas going to hold out? No. They'll be there. I think. Well, JJ's in town, like we said. He's in town, so he's not going anywhere. Dallas might be in town too. I'm not sure. So, but yeah, historically, this team has been very lucky. They haven't had a lot of holdouts. They haven't had a lot of turmoil or anything like that. So you can kind of give them credit for that. Hey, what's up, Nug? You can kind of, for a young franchise, they've had a lot of stability. They've had moments where they've been unstable, but for the most part, they've had that stability. And this team's going on, 60, is it 64 years this year? Yeah.
Oh, 1961.
Yep, 64 years. Next year will be 65, the 65th anniversary.
Yeah, what do you think about that? There's only been what, at the most 4
seasons of
people holding out, maybe 4.
Yeah, 4 people holding out. Most of the turmoil with this team has never been on the field. A lot of it's been off the field, like with the ownership especially later after the whole Max Winter debacle with Mike Lynn. That's when it started. It actually started when Jim Finks left. Finks wanted to become part owner of the team. Max Winter said no. Jim Finks left, and Mike Lynn was hired. But Mike Lynn was notoriously cheap.
Well,
And
I'm glad they don't have that moniker anymore.
being cheap,
Yeah.
it's and put it this way, they got their stadium in the 70s. They got the dome. It's not a very good stadium. The thing was outdated 2 years after it was finished.
It was outdated when they built it.
Yeah, it was outdated. They had problems with it. We lost a lot of our identity going indoors. We still don't have our identity. But for the most part, not a lot of turmoil. The team is always up there for the most part. They're competitive. Your team is doing good when the first coach you ever fire you're on your 25th year in the league, and the first coach you fire is Les Steckel.
Yeah.
But you've had, Denny resigned, Bud retired, Bernsey retired, Van Brocklin resigned. And then after him, Mike Tice was fired, as was Brad Childress. Everybody else has been fired since.
Bud Grant's the only one who left on his own accord.
Yeah. Denny Green resigned. So, hey, what's up, Tweevil?
Well, it was fired or resigned, so it kind of wasn't like the Bud Grant situation.
Well, Denny resigned. He was not going to let McCombs fire him.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is that Bud Grant wasn't under that situation. Bud Grant retired.
No, Bud walked away on his own terms.
Yeah, right. You can say
Bud walked away on his own terms, and so did Burns. Van Brocklin resigned. Denny resigned. They weren't fired. They resigned. Everybody else was fired.
I wouldn't have minded if the Vikings signed Wentz, instead of Darnold.
Well, question: did Wentz sign with anybody?
I'm not sure, but Darnold has that San Francisco tie, so I think
he's got that Shanahan tie.
Yeah,
he's got that Shanahan tie, so he's gonna. And you know what? And Darnold's going to be a project for KOC now. If it works out, Darnold's going to get a payday. If it doesn't, JJ will be starting sooner than they want him to. So we'll see what happens.
Too evil. I don't know if you know, the Timberwolves made a trade earlier. They got Dillingham who went to Kentucky from the Spurs.
Yeah, they did. Yep, I saw that. I did see that. They ended up with was he a point guard?
He's a 2.
A 2?
He can run the point, but he scores like a 2.
Okay.
But yeah, the Wolves are next on the clock. They're probably going to trade that pick to. But what are we talking about again? What was that Charles Barkley? What are we talking about again? But they really haven't had even. How many times have they actually had to franchise something because they couldn't re-sign him? They haven't. That hasn't had a lot either.
They very seldom use that franchise tag.
Yeah, I saw a thing the other day where the Vikings, there was one other team, I can't remember who it was, but they are the 2 teams that use the franchise tag the least.
Yeah, Vikings, because we didn't franchise, we never franchised Kirk. He always signed an extension.
Yeah.
We didn't franchise. Did we franchise Daniil?
No, because the contract extension he signed
Mm-hmm.
was the language was written that the Vikings could not franchise him.
Okay. Well, hell, we haven't. Oh my gosh,
I can check. Let me see.
I can't think of I can't think of the last player we franchised. There's always that threat that the franchise is coming up, the franchise tag is coming up, and when it does, Minnesota works out some sort of deal to extend a player with a extension or renew a contract and put more money into it. But I can't remember the last person they franchised, last player.
Okay. Let me see. So 2020, Anthony Harris.
We franchised Haig Anthony Harris.
Yep, it was only $11 million though.
Wow, we wasted and he was
Okay,
gone.
so
Shortly
2011. Before that was 2011 was Chad Greenway.
Okay.
But he never played on the franchise tag. He signed before. And before Greenway was Jim Kleinsaucer in 2003.
Oh, jeez.
1997 was Randall McDaniel. Henry Thomas in 94. That's it.
Okay. Well, you know what's funny? When they franchised Randall McDaniel in '98, they almost lost John Randall. John Randall was actually in a meeting watching game film with Jimmy Johnson in Miami at the Dolphins complex.
So Wentz is the backup in Kansas City, I guess.
Oh, okay. When his agent called him and told him that he had worked out a deal with the Minnesota Vikings. And I mean, but John Randall was that close to signing with the Dolphins and Jimmy Johnson. So, but then that was when I don't know if Denny was in control of the GM spot yet, but they had signed that year Jake Reed, Robert Smith, John Randall, and Todd Stussy to big contracts. And all three were gone by 2001. Stussy and Randall were both released. Robert Smith retired. And Jake got traded, but he came back to Minnesota.
That dude, I don't know if you follow Jake Reed on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now.
Mm-hmm.
That dude bleeds purple just like we do.
Oh, yeah. Him and Sammy White both.
Yeah.
Him and Sammy both. Sammy, I guess, now has a bobblehead.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's got a bobblehead. I saw that on X. What's his name? Dave Osborne. He just had Ron Yuri in town over the weekend.
You cannot.
Yeah,
but most of the old Vikings, from what I understand, maybe the Steelers are the only other team, but it seems to be like they stick around once they leave the Vikings.
Yeah, and now there's a way for these guys to make a little extra money being former Viking players. They are having these autograph signings. Like Paul Krause is having them at his garage, and he's bringing former teammates. Just last weekend, he had Ron Yuri. Ron Yuri never comes to Minnesota, very seldom. Ed White was here, last year? I met Ed. I saw Ed and Chuck Foreman at an autograph signing. Ed was a great guy, Ed White. He comes to town. See, they're all California guys, so they stay in California. Ed told me himself, I asked him, did he miss the Minnesota weather? He's like, not in December.
That's why we in San Antonio.
Yeah, he said, I don't miss the weather in December. He misses the fans, but he don't miss the weather. But yeah, a lot of them do. A lot of them have stuck around. Those that are still with us.
Yeah.
Carl Eller is out there. Of all the Purple People Eaters, he's the most visible.
Well, he's a Supreme Court justice.
That's Alan Page.
Oh, sorry. What you said? I was watching the draft. Sorry. Timberwolves are about to pick. But Carl Eller, he stayed in the area even after he quit playing, though, right?
Oh yeah, he lived in He's lived in North Minneapolis for years. He stayed. Jim stayed.
Good job, no stop.
Alan came back. Hey, no stop. Gary Larson lives in, I believe he was in Washington. I think now he's in California or out on the West Coast.
What about like Randall? He's not in Minnesota.
John Randall?
Yeah.
Yes, he's in Minnesota.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Yep. John Randall's in Minnesota. Randall McDaniel's in Minnesota.
Well, he's a teacher, ain't he?
Yep. Like a teacher or principal, I want to say. Ted Brown is still in Minnesota. Tommy Kramer just moved back.
Well, Krause?
Paul Krause still in Minnesota. Well, he's from Iowa too, so he's from this.
Well, Kramer had to move back.
Yeah, Kramer did. Yeah.
Greenway.
Dave Osborne still lives up here.
Greenway.
The older guys, Gene Washington is still here. Kyle Rudolph, I want to say, I don't think he lives here.
And Randy Moss doesn't live here, but he still has his.
He still spends a lot of time up here.
Yeah, he still got his charities here.
Yeah, he spends a lot of time up here. Dante Culpepper's now coming back up here every now and then.
Was Tinglehoff here to the end?
Huh?
Was Tinglehoff here till the end?
Yes. Tinglehoff was here. Bill
Blair, Hillenberg.
Milt Sunday.
Yeah, Hillenberg as well, right? They were all here till the end.
Yes,
right?
Hilgenberg as well. Roy Winston lived in Louisiana. He had a fishing business with Lonnie Warwick at one time. Lertzma's still here. Yep. Bob is still here.
Browner's in California,
I think Browner's in northern Minnesota.
Because I thought I saw something where he was just visiting California, but I did see something where he was in California.
He was out. He might have been out there to visit, but he lives in northern Minnesota.
Because I know he's from Southern Cal, where he went to school.
Yeah,
so
he lives in Duluth, I believe.
But it's just weird how they all stay.
Yeah, I think they stay more so even with the bigger cities, those players don't stay. Up here though, it's like even with Packer players too, they stayed too. Some of them lived in Minnesota. Some of them lived in Minnesota though.
or they go to Milwaukee. I don't think they actually stay in Green Bay. They couldn't.
Yeah, they go to Milwaukee. Most of your Bear players live in the suburbs. Same with the Detroit players that do stay. But I mean, there's something about Minnesota. The guys, they stuck around. So I give us credit for that. Though especially the guys that were born in the South and those that were born in the West that actually stayed in Minnesota.
Hell, my parents are from Michigan, and that was too cold for them. So I can only imagine Minnesota.
Yeah. And there's a ton of Minnesota transplants on the West Coast and in the South. So when I went to the Atlanta game in 2015, it literally felt like a home game for the Vikings because there were a ton of Viking fans there.
Well, Vikings fans definitely travel.
Yeah. Well, these were the ones that lived there.
You guys gonna get your medicine.
Yeah.
These were the ones that lived in each.
Yeah, job opportunities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either you get married, you move away, your wife's family's from that area. You're like, well, that area has better weather than where we're at, so let's go there.
Yeah, T-Bass, I think he will. I'm not sure that McMichael even knows what's going on. He's here, but he has no idea what's going on. So that's it's gonna be hard to watch, especially if you saw the guy play and you seen him. He was a pro wrestler one time too.
Be
So
almost as bad as a Tingle
yeah, Mick was there and
He was there physically. He was not
is there
there
physically.
mentally.
He didn't remember it. He matter of fact, they didn't even get to interview him because he had, what was it, Sundowners,
Yeah.
and so they had to take him back to the hotel. But
Now the question is, if he didn't play football for as long as he had, would he have had the same symptoms?
well, McMichael's got ALS, and that's a muscular thing, right?
Right. I'm talking about Tingelhoff.
Tingelhoff, if he hadn't played for as long, which okay, Jim Marshall played longer than Jim, but pretty close. But he still has pretty good recall. He's still able to remember things. These guys all played on the line. I think some people. I think it can either be genetics or it's just how your genetics works. It's a part of getting old. Some people age gracefully. Some, when they age, they really age. I think
Does
that
McMichael still live in Chicago?
he's in a suburb, I believe.
Chicago is not that far from Canton.
No,
So if they can get like one of those big vans or whatever to put him in, he might be able to make it.
he's not going. They've already said he's not going. They're going to have the bust and they're going to have the gold jacket there for him, and they're going to do a live feed with his jacket and with the bust. So
Yeah. And it happens pretty fast too. Like one day they're fine, and then the next day they're like, "What the hell happened?"
a lot of players, especially those that are our age catch, they're getting ALS. You might be able to contribute that to steroid use.
Wouldn't surprise me.
It used to be a rare disease, but it's a muscle disease, I believe. So, now that Chris Chandler, the guy had a ton of concussions. I've heard nothing on Chris Chandler. Then
Quarterback.
he used to call him Chris Chandelier because he was literally a concussion away on a sack. I don't know where. I've heard nothing out of him. So there's a possibility that he's not doing very well. There's a former Viking that's doing really bad as far as that goes with dementia, and that's Al Noga. Noga's family actually sued the NFL, and they lost because of Al's dementia, and they said the repeated collisions at the line of scrimmage caused Al to get early onset dementia. And now keep in mind, Al is my age. Al was born the same year as me, and I'm 57. But Al Noga is not. He's with us, but he's not with us. Put it that way. So, but if you remember Al,
Does he live in Minnesota?
no, I want to say he moved to either California or back to Hawaii.
What about Ezra? He's in.
Ezra is still here.
Okay.
Ezra is still here. Ezra being, he's very prominent in the LGBTQ community. So he's doing a lot of work with them. But he's fine. Some players are fine. There were some,
No.
you think of players that got concussions back in the day and they still continue to play.
Yeah.
Now the first sign that a player's even wobbly, he's not going in. He's going out. You know, no stop when it came to roids. The Raiders were notorious for it. John Matuzak, Lyle Alzado. There were other guys. There were others too, but they were notorious for using steroids.
Well, them and the Steelers, right?
Oh, the Steelers, yeah. And the Steelers were probably the first team to use, and it was a steroid, but it was really a horse pill. It was a steroid for horses for something.
So what they do, like crush it up?
Yeah, they crushed it up and took it. Yeah, I mean, put it this way, Fran even said it for Super Bowl IX. He said those players were unusually jacked. They were jacked up like they were on something. And a classic example, Mike Webster, God rest his soul. The only one left from the steel curtain is Joe Green.
Well, he had natural ability.
Right. You look at like Jack Lambert. Remember what he looked like as a player? You see him now, you'd have never recognized him. Same with Jack Ham. The offensive line was really the ones that were. Larry Brown was unusually jacked, and he was a tight end. But you had John Kolb, you had Ray Pinney, you had Sam Davis, Mulligan. Those guys were all Banaszak. They were in Lyle, Steve Furness. They were unusually jacked, and they were all taking steroids. There was something going on with the Steelers up in, I think, through the whole Chuck Noll coaching regime where everybody was just unusually jacked. Remember, they had John Ringstra. They drafted him. Remember Terry Long. He was like 6 feet tall and 300 and some odd pounds, and his arms were just huge. He was a lineman. But yeah, that in that day and age, you know, and that was their job. So those guys were going to keep their job no matter what it took. Nowadays, those players don't have that mentality. They're already thinking about life after football. Football is just a stepping stone to what's going to happen later on.
A lot more Robert Smiths today.
Yeah. And Robert retired. Robert would have got a payday when he retired. He was going to be probably the highest paid free agent in 2001. And he retired out of the clear blue.
Well, that's why NFL GMs don't like smart people.
Yeah. They want you to be dumb as a box of rocks.
Yeah.
Adrian Peterson.
Robert Smith, I mean, come on, he took astronomy.
Well, and here's the thing, too. Robert had how many knee injuries? 3?
3 or 4.
3 or 3 that I know of. Maybe more. So, I mean, in all honesty, he was a running back, too, and he had been in the league 8 years. It was probably time for him to retire.
Played long enough to get that pension.
Well, the thing with Walter worked out like a madman in the offseason. And like I said, with a problem like that, he might have taken some sort of supplements, but I think it also depends too on your genetic makeup. Sometimes liver disease runs in the family, kidney disease runs in the family. It depends on the person's just genetic makeup. But if your makeup's already bad and you're predisposed to that and you add supplements to it, it's going to speed it up. So, yeah, no stuff. Robert did have bad knees.
Well, he didn't want to say, I remember an interview with him. He said that he did not want to be a Chuck Foreman.
Yeah.
Walking around all limping when you go to Vikings, stuff like that.
Yep.
He's like, I did not want to be that way. We're talking about Robert Smith. I don't know if you guys know the story when he was at Ohio State. He almost quit the Ohio State football team because they wanted him to drop one of his classes so that he could be at football practice.
He quit for a year.
And then his coach is like, you don't need that class. You need to come to practice. Well, Robert's like, you need me more than I need you. And it was true because they begged him to come back.
Now, Robert quit for a year, which was
Yeah.
91, and he came back in 92. He was a junior. He was a junior when he came back, and then he ended up being Denny Green's #1 draft pick. Now, keep in mind when the Vikings drafted Robert Smith, everybody laughed.
I love you.
Oh.
Okay, sorry. Give my wife a kiss goodnight. No kissy on YouTube.
No tongue?
No tongue or no kissy on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, Ditka wanted. Yeah, T-Bass Ditka wanted dummies.
Well, they want to mold you. They want to be able to tell you what to do. They want to do all of this. They don't want someone who's going to think about why.
They
would I
don't
do
want
that?
somebody who's going to think. They don't want somebody who's going to question you. They
Yeah.
want somebody who's just going to fall in line. They just want somebody you don't ask questions. Just listen to me and you'll be fine, which is not always true. First of all, you don't put people in that position where they got to ask. Either know what the hell you're doing or get somebody in there who does. But that, Ditka was old school. You trusted your coaches. You trusted people that you probably should not have trusted.
Yeah, he goes to old school. You do what I do as I say. I'm the coach.
Right.
Sit down, shut up, don't question.
Well, even in high school, how bad was it in high school? A player gets hurt. This is high school.
Yeah.
He gets hurt. His coach guilts him into going back into the game, telling him he's not a team player.
Right.
And then the kid goes back out there and he gets hurt worse. The problem is in sports, you're expendable.
You can always gets mad at him for being hurt even more.
Exactly. You can always be replaced. Each year, remember, there's a new class coming in. There's a new class of veterans, a new class, there's somebody else coming in and they might get your job. Well, guess what? Life goes on. And I think with a lot of coaches, especially the old school coaches, it was just, we were expendable. Put it that way.
Definitely.
Yeah, we were expendable. And with the NFL especially, and the NFL will always be expendable because guess what? As long as you've got now college football is minor league NFL. I'm just going to put it that way. As long as you got college football.
I think college football is AA. The UFL is like AAA and then NFL.
Yeah.
Because the players in the NFL are better than 90% of your college players.
Well, now here's the thing. Now here's the biggest problem. You've got college players now that will be making more money than some NFL players.
Yeah. I think it's ruining college football.
College football was ruined years ago when you started paying all them damn coaches.
They needs to be capped on how much they can make.
Here's the thing. College football was ruined years ago when you started giving these overpaid coaches big time money. You talking about Ditka, T-Bass? Because I think McMahon was actually picked by he was picked by Jim Finks.
Now, was it the offense that they ran? Because he was much more didn't they run kind of like a wide open offense at BYU?
They were a passing team for that era of football. Jim, but it's BYU. BYU was playing, they weren't playing real competitive teams. They were playing like the Fresno States and all that stuff. But yeah, they did run that sort of wide open offense. But then after him came Steve Young. Then after Steve Young was Robbie Bosco.
Well, kind of a birthright for Steve Young to go to BYU.
Yeah.
He probably didn't even have to pay.
And then he ends up in California with the Express. Yeah. And then if Walsh doesn't make that trade to get him out of Tampa Bay, does not
He's
have
not a
that.
Hall of Famer.
He's not a Hall of Famer because he was just getting his ass kicked in Tampa Bay on a regular basis.
Well, everybody was.
Yeah, Tampa Bay hadn't had once Doug Williams left for the USFL, they were in quarterback hell after that.
What did they have? They had Spurrier.
They had Spurrier. They had
Young.
Gary Huff. And then they had a bunch of no names. Then they drafted Doug Williams. Then after Doug Williams, they had Jack Thompson. They had
Was Williams their quarterback in '79?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. They had Thompson. They had DeBerg.
Yeah.
They had Steve DeBerg. They had Steve Young. Then they drafted Vinny Testaverde. And they had shit for quarterbacks. Although Vinny Testaverde did run for 100 yards against the Vikings one year, which was embarrassing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were just kind of the purgatory for quarterbacks. They didn't get another successful quarterback till, believe it or not, Trent Dilfer.
Yeah.
And I don't know how crazy Trent Dilfer is because he started a fight with John Randall. So, how smart can you really be? T-Bass, the transfer portal's ruining sports, period.
Well, you've always been able to transfer, but there was limitations and restrictions. But now it's like, there's no penalty.
No, there isn't. I'll put it this way: the Gophers lost 29. The University of Minnesota lost 29 players to the transfer portal. 29, and they lost one of their top recruited linemen just this week. He decommitted. So,
It's become a more and more haves and have-nots.
And it will continue to be that.
Yeah.
Well, and now here's the thing. You've got to look at these because guess what? A lot of these kids that are playing college football are 18 and older. So guess what? They're legally adults.
Yeah.
So they're looking to get paid like an adult, not like some college kid. Here's the thing. If the colleges can make a boatload of cash to conferences off of the TV, off of their player likenesses, and the coaches can make a boatload of cash, why can't the players? Why can't the players get their payday one time, at least?
No, I agree. But you have schools to where they can pay one player more than other schools can pay their whole roster.
And you're always going to have that.
That's what I'm saying. There's got to be some kind of competitive balance.
But
to where, like, if you're going to play player A $4 million, then you lose like 2 scholarships or 3 scholarships or something like that.
But then, okay, think of it this way: whose fault is that?
Well, it's the NCAA's fault for letting it be the Wild Wild West out there.
Right. So what are the schools doing with this money that they share with these conferences from the TV and all that shit?
Well, they fund the other programs.
Okay.
The football program funds the gymnastics team. It funds the water polo team. It funds the softball team. It funds all track and field. It funds every one of those sports.
You also have to look at what you really got to look at is the boosters.
Well, yeah.
The boosters are what you have to really look at them. I mean, if they've got the money, they'll get it. I mean, just here, like in the Twin Cities, you've got a ton of boosters that have money. They give the U money. Don't know if many of them are on the PJ Fleck row the boat thing. I think a bunch of them are off of it.
Well, when was the last time they had a good head coach? I mean, Jerry Kill was probably a good head coach. He proved that because he actually won.
Yeah,
he actually won New Mexico State.
Kill's only problem was he kept having epileptic seizures,
Yeah.
and they were the more he had them, the scarier they got. But Kill beat Michigan. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he went into Michigan and beat Michigan, but you had Tracy Claeys who had a bunch of BS happen to him on his watch, and he still won bowl games. He was let go because of what happened at the U, that the U is still paying for, by the way.
Stop.
And then the Mark Coyle just had to have his guy, which was PJ Fleck. I think PJ Fleck's a used car salesman, just honestly. He keeps getting in these, these low tier bowl games, which nobody cares about. But to the Gophers, I mean, to the University of Minnesota, they can't even use that as a recruiting tool anymore.
Well, especially with the teams that the Big Ten added.
Yeah, and now you're adding the West Coast teams. Yeah,
They have the weather. West Coast teams have the weather.
Yeah, So I mean, it's if you're a player, and I get what you're saying, T-Bass. Where are you going to go? Well, guess what? You enter a lot of these players will be entering the transfer portal for years. Every year they're going to be in the transfer portal.
Yeah, there's that guy who he's on his fourth school in 4 years.
Yeah,
he just goes whoever pays him the most. They've become mercenaries.
They're hired hands.
Yeah,
they're hired guns, literally hired.
And if you know you're going to transfer, you only need to keep your grades up at the bare minimum.
And I wonder how many of these guys actually go to class.
Yeah.
If there were players that never went to class back in the day, it's probably times 10 now. So I mean, they're paid. Those kids are there to play football. They ain't trying to get an education.
Well, how often would Vanderbilt have a player Southern Cal would want? And two, most kids who go to Vanderbilt are too smart to go to Southern Cal.
If you go to Southern Cal, you're there to party.
Yeah.
You ain't there to learn anything. You're there to party.
People who go to Southern California work for people who went to Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Low-level jobs.
That is the only reason Vanderbilt is in the SEC is because of the academics.
Yeah.
So.
Actually, T-Bass, I think Nike has, but it's Oregon. So, it's...
Well, the guy who started Nike went to Oregon.
Yeah, he went to Oregon. That's why they have 30, 40 different shades of ugly jersey.
Which is why they always been with Nike team.
Yep, they've always got the swoosh. Always have. They were the first ones to have the swoosh. And the first ones to have ugly ass.
Yeah, because most everybody was wearing Champion,
Rawlings,
or
Russell, Starter,
Soft Net, whatever that team.
Soft Net, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for a while there was one year the Viking jerseys were Puma.
Yeah, I know. That happened to be the year that I got an authentic Robert Smith jersey.
Mm-hmm.
It was Puma, and it was like Puma. They're used to doing European sizes, so their sizes weren't as big.
Yeah. I got when they first changed their uniforms, they were Champion. Vikings were on Champion for years, but you can also blame Jerry Jones for that because he was the one with the Cowboys who made the deal with Nike. He went and got, because the NFL had a already set with the uniform provider. So, and now it's Nike. And you can tell it's Nike because each NFL team has 30 different styles of uniform, and each one sucks from the other. That's Nike. And unfortunately, they've done it with the Vikings too. It's, now the Vikings have 3-4 different unis. The white ones, I'm not feeling the white ones. Just not.
I don't like white helmets.
I don't like white helmets either. I would prefer they go back to the old school unis. That just looks better. Um,
Well, there was a thing today on Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call it, where they showed like a 10-second video
of the helmet, right?
of a Viking player on a helmet, and it was really shiny.
They
So
went back to
people are saying that the
glossy, I
Vikings are
think.
going back to the shiny helmet, but it has not been confirmed.
I hope so. I wish they'd go back to the darker purple.
So
I wish they would.
and it did not look blue; it actually looked purple.
Yeah, I hope they go back to that glossy print. I would love that.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I like the whiteout uniforms in general. I wish they would have put some yellow in it, just to keep them from looking like TCU.
yeah,
know?
they look at TCU.
But maybe a small yellow outline around the numbers or something.
Well, and here's the funny part: you know how they have all the merchandise for the whiteouts.
Yeah.
They've got some really sweet whiteout hoodies. I mean, they're sweet.
Yeah.
The only problem is they're white, and on a big guy like me,
Yep.
I'm going to attract something.
Like I can wear a dark shirt. I won't spill a damn thing.
Won't spill a damn thing. Let it be
You
white.
wear a light pastel color.
It's a wrap. It's
your coffee cup that you buy from the coffee place. The lid leaks, drips on your shirt.
Yeah.
It's on tighter than a gnat's ass when you have a dark shirt on.
But when you got something white on,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's loose, and you hit one bump and there it is all over you. Yeah, I would. I mean, I like the design. I'd like for them to do that in like the purple color, but
I just don't want. I don't mind the whiteout because the Vikings were white anyway. I do not want a blackout. I do not like teams who do not have black as one of their colors wearing black uniforms.
Right.
So, but we have our Friday night show.
Yes, we do.
So typical 9:40 start on the Friday night. So we have that. I already got the thumbnail done and everything like that.
Cool.
Tonight was just kind of the NBA draft. Let's talk about. Oh, we didn't realize there's so few.
Yeah.
And with me working until 7:00 p.m. now, it's harder for me to get the thumbnail out. I might do it. I might start doing it a day early, so I might contact you on Tuesday to figure out what we're talk about.
Yeah,
so I can get it out early so we can get more people in here. I just think there's not enough notice. That's why we have so few people lately. But no. So next week we're not. We'll talk about something next week. The Friday show is. I don't even know if we really talk Vikings. We barely touched the Vikings the last Friday show.
Not everything but the Vikings. Well, tell you what, this probably tells you. I mean, there's not much to talk about with this team. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There's nothing.
Could use a Love Boat. So we could use the Love Boat story.
Oh yeah, rehash that one.
Give us something to talk about.
They're due for a new Love Boat. They are.
They've been well behaved for too long.
Right. So yeah, but I mean, there's stuff to talk about. Closer teams are going to start getting into training camps here. So
yeah,
there is stuff going on. There's plenty to talk about in and out of sports. So
yeah. So Victor, I know we usually do the Friday show every 2 weeks, but next Friday night is the day after 4th of July.
Right.
So who knows how many people are going to be there. So we're doing it 2 weeks in a row.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
But yeah.
Once again, thank you everybody that came on and watched.
This is going to be a short one. This is it's an hour, but it's still one of our short ones. So we appreciate everybody coming here. We can join us Friday. Friday's an open forum, so anybody can join. Like I said, I really appreciate everybody for coming, and we will see you guys Friday.
Take care.